together, um, there's always been this quote-unquote unwritten rule about the length of a song being 3 or 4 minutes, and all of a sudden there's a wonderful piece called MacArthur Park, which was, what was it, 6 or 7, somewhere in there, kind of defying, I don't want to call it the rules, but what was tradition. When you were writing that, without getting into technique or anything, did you have any thought in your mind that this wasn't going to happen, that you weren't going to make this because it was that long, or did you really say, this is it, I'm really immensely proud of this piece of music, this work of mine?
Well, MacArthur Park was 7 minutes and 20 seconds long, actually, and it was supposed to be a lot longer than that, and it was really never meant for airplay. It was strictly an experiment that was inspired by a guy named Bones Howe, who was producing a band called The Association. And he came to me one night, we were having a discussion after a date, and he said, a recording date, he said, I want to do something with classical overtones. I want to do pop music, but I want it to have movements. I want it to have more size than a 3-minute song. And I was intrigued. I thought, that sounds great. That's right up my alley. And what I'll do is I'll do a kind of a sketch of what would be, what might have been a classical piece. I mean, it might have been an hour long. It might have been an hour and 10 minutes long, for all I know. That was what was in the back of my mind, anyway. And MacArthur Park was really just a sketch for something else that was meant to be huge. And even at 7 minutes and 20 seconds, it wasn't suitable for airplay and was never released as a single, and no one had any idea it ever would be. It was a real interesting piece to put on that album, and Richard Harris was the guy who stirred things up and fomented the enthusiasm to do that thing. He wanted to do that. And they had in those days something which we really don't have anymore, which went by a lot of names, but one of the names was freeform radio, FM, disc jockeys could play whatever they wanted to play, which I'd love to see us get back to that, but I doubt that we will. But in this particular time, guys could come on and do a very eclectic show and do anything they wanted to do for hours and hours and hours and hours. So they were playing things like, they would play the Doors. You know, the Doors had a couple of jams that went like 6 or 7 minutes, and there was some. I think Bob Dylan had there was like a real long song that Bob had that went on for 4 or 5 minutes anyway. You could play that on FM. So some of these guys started playing MacArthur Park, just as a lark, or as a joke, or to go to the bathroom. That's what they tell me, is that they used to put it on and go to the bathroom, or put it on and go in the back room with their girlfriend. I've also been told that. The song was very popular with disc jockeys. Let's just leave it at that. And so they started playing it, and it caught on FM. And pretty soon, some of these big rockers, like 93 KHJ in Los Angeles, were getting a lot of requests from MacArthur Park. So I remember when they called up my company one day and said, this is, you know, Ron Jacobs or whoever it was at KHJ, and said, we're getting a lot of requests for MacArthur Park. We really want to play it, but there's no way we can play a record that's 7 minutes, 20 seconds long. Can you edit a version of MacArthur Park so that we can put it on the air? We'd love to put it on the air. And I looked at my partner then, a guy named William F. Williams, and we just kind of looked at each other and we said, not. And we told him no. We said, no, we're not going to edit it. I couldn't think of how to edit it anyway. I couldn't figure out how that would be done. It wouldn't make any sense. And we just said no. And a week later, KHJ went on that record, 7 minutes and 20 seconds. And all of a sudden, it was just on the air all over the country. It was a true phenomenon. There was no master plan behind that at all. It's just something that happened. And subsequent to that, the Beatles recorded a tune called Hey Jude that was also a real long record. And if you look at the elapsed time on Hey Jude, you'll see that Hey Jude is 7 minutes 21 seconds long. It is 1 second longer than MacArthur Park, which I've always chosen to believe was not an accident.
What's your most prized work?
Well, it's not going to be, you know, hit records, you know, things like that. It's just not going to be like that. My favorite songs are probably the ones that I feel like I was most successful in my craft, at what I set out to do. A song like "The Moon is a Harsh Mistress" is really important to me. If I was going to have to, like, take one thing out of my catalog and say, here, this is what I do, I'd probably take "The Moon is a Harsh Mistress" and show that. I think that's probably the most beautiful crafted writing that I've ever done was for a musical I wrote with Ray Bradbury called Dandelion Wine. It's something that I just really like to listen to, and unfortunately, you know, I'm known for, you know, for Galveston and Wichita linemen, and by the time I get to Phoenix, I don't know. I think "Didn't We" is a pretty song. It was also written for a Broadway show, you know, but actually it wasn't a Broadway show. It was a San Bernardino show, but I was in college at the time. But they're the things that I feel satisfy the parameters that I set for myself, where I say it needs a beautiful, inspiring kind of original chord structure. It needs a beautiful melody, and the lyric has to follow through. It all has to move along together on a certain level of excellence. It has to give me a chill when I listen to it. It has to make me feel like somebody just walked over my grave when I listen to it. And then I feel like I've accomplished something. But it's not the hits.
So as an artist, a creator, do you feel that your instrument draws you to it and then you write, or you just sit down and you play and it comes out that way? Where does that come from?
I think of myself, and it may sound a little pompous, and I'm sorry if it does, but I think of myself as a chordal composer in the tradition of Ralph Vaughan Williams or Samuel Barber. And what I usually start out with is a kind of grainy and dense voicing of even a single chord on the piano that makes me feel, you know, which is that's Barber. And then to organize those into a pattern for me is to begin to write a song. Like from Suspending Disbelief, this tune I do called Elvis and Me. Let's see, can't even remember it now.